Hey everyone, John from Burley Strength here today. I want to share with you a discussion that I've had with a few people recently. It's always something that comes up in the lead up to competitions and in and around the end of a heavy training cycle, and that's how you should deal with fear or the nerves that are associated with lifting really heavy. Right now, I think in life and in lifting, pushing the boundaries of what you're capable of or what you know you're capable of is inevitably going to lead to some anxiety or some anxious thoughts or nerves or fear or whatever you want to label it as. And I think it's important to know that it's okay to feel like that, right? I think a lot of people talk about lifting, especially in a way that suggests they're going to war or they're, hardcore and fearless. And I think, to be honest, most of those people are probably deluding themselves. I think pushing the boundaries of anything in life is going to lead to a little bit of fear, and it's okay. And I think the first step in dealing with that is just acknowledging that it's okay. It's okay that you feel nervous approaching a bar that you've never lifted before. It's okay that getting to the end of that heavy training cycle and seeing those numbers on your program and knowing that you've never done them before makes you feel a little bit anxious. That's okay. I think the best lifters in the world they're not fearless, right? They're not experiencing these feelings. What they're doing is they're just better at using them, right? And understanding how to accept it and how to move forward using that. So I want to talk about a couple of different ideas about what you can do to manage these things, right? The first one is just that, right? It's acceptance. It's understanding that fear is a natural response, that anxious thought about how you're going to do it or are you good enough to lift that weight. That's a really natural response, and it's okay to have that. Don't fight it. Just know that it's there and acknowledge the fact that it's there and accept that it's part of training. It's part of pushing your limits. From there, I think the best thing you can do, and especially applies to new novice level lifters or people who are not experienced with dealing with the adversity of lifting heavy, right? And that's to have a process, to have a system. If you've ever watched anything we've ever put out, you've probably heard me preach about having a system before, having an approach that allows you to be consistent in what you do every time you get under a bar. The more consistent you are with that process, the more well ingrained that process is, the less influence that fear and anxiety is going to have upon the outcome of your lifting. So having a process that's the same for your squat with an empty bar as it is with 100 kilos or 200 kilos or 300 kilos is the easiest way to manage the fear, because it's always going to be there. But what that process allows you to do is to separate the anxiety and the emotional thoughts of fear and that sort of thing from the logic that is, I know how to do this, I know how to execute this movement, and I've done the work to get to that point, right? I've done the work that means I've earned this weight. And I think the more confident you are in yourself and in your system, the easier it is to approach weights that you've never done before. So practice a system that means in training you approach the bar the same way as you do in competition. It's the same setup. It's the same walkout in your squat. It's the same process. All of that has to be the same regardless of the weight, because ultimately the weight on the bar shouldn't have an influence upon how you execute the movement. If it does, that means you're letting your emotional thoughts, that fear, that anxiety, take control and replace the system that you're training for, right? Spend that time in training developing a process that allows you to execute things exactly the same regardless of the weight on the bar. The third step in this is more applicable to experienced and highly skilled lifters, and that's that idea of being able to use that fear, use that anxiety to take your mental arousal or your psych up levels to a new state and push yourself beyond what you're capable of, perhaps in training or what you've done before. So I think, and I see this a lot, especially at novice comps, lifters who are really keen on lifting really heavy and they're trying to do something they've never done in training before and they get really amped up. Now, there's in sports psychology, they talk about the mental arousal bell curve, right? it's a bell curve because there's a peak point where your level of mental arousal is going to most positively influence the outcome of the lift. And when you go beyond that or you go underneath that, you're losing the benefit of it. So don't overpsych yourself, especially in training. I think the more calm and collected you can be in training, the better able you'll be better able to replicate the system. And then it means on comp day, you can approach things in a nice, calm and collected manner, because inevitably, regardless of who you are, you're going to be more anxious. You're going to be more excited on comp day. That's the nature of competition, right? So rather than getting all psyched up and having your friends slap you in the face and huffing a whole heap of ammonia, especially for new novice level lifters, just be calm, take a breath, know you can do it, be confident in your abilities, and approach the bar in exactly the same way you would in training. As you get better at that, as you get better at the system and your default rep or your average rep is really good, then you can start to play with getting a little bit psyched up, maybe a little bit of ammonia, maybe a little bit of music or things like that, and then you can explore what you're capable of with a little bit of that mental arousal, right? Pushing the boundaries of that. Mickey has just mentioned in the comments that Nathan Jones and Will Crozier are two perfect examples of this. Both Nathan and Will are two of the best 110 kilo lifters in the country. I would argue they're probably two of the best power lifters in the country, regardless of weight class. And neither of them are the sort of guy that spend the whole time walking around the back room, amped up, listening to music, having their mates tell them how great they are. They are two of the nicest, most humble people you'll ever meet. They are happy and enjoying themselves in the warm-up room, and I know this because I've spent a lot of time in warm-up rooms with both of these guys, and yet they still know how to flick that switch, right? The really good, experienced lifters know how to flick the switch. They know how to get that mental arousal. They know where to go to in that mental arousal, so not beyond what's going to help them execute the lift, but they go to that sweet spot and they can hit it with ease every single time. Novice lifters are going to have a much harder time just because you're not as good at the skill of ramping yourself up and coming back down again. So it's something you can practice in training, but I think for most new novice level lifters, which is the bulk of our audience, I think you need to be calm and collected, and you need to have an approach that allows you to replicate things in competition that look exactly the same as they do in training. That's what's going to help you manage that fear, that anxiety. I don't think, and nor will I ever promote the idea that you should try and get rid of the fear or, not be anxious about it. I've been competing for a very long time now, and I still get anxious about it every single time. It's something that never goes away. And if it does, I think it's probably because you're too comfortable, because you're not pushing your boundaries enough. And so accepting it is the first part, right? Accept it, be aware of it, then you can learn to use it. That's all from me today, folks. Hopefully that helps a few of you, especially in the lead up to our last novice comp for the year. Just manage your nerves a little bit. It's okay to be nervous. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Be nervous. Be there ready to enjoy the day. And hopefully you'll have a great day. If you have any questions, thoughts, feelings, comments, hit us up below. And otherwise, I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers.